Hi, welcome to Finance Friday. I am Elle from cleverlychanging.com. I started Finance Friday live on my blog, cleverlychanging.com, it's actually been 7 years now. 7 years ago, the discussion was basically to help moms and dads, people with families, to better manage their finances so that they could have something to pass on to the next generation. And today's topic is one that I'm very excited to talk about. We've had a lively discussion going on the Facebook website since yesterday, actually the day before yesterday. Working Mother published an article about the article is called "This Calculator Tells You Exactly How Much Money You Lose When You Stay Home with Your Kids." And so what I wanted to do, I wanted to discuss the sacrifice that moms or dads often have to make in order to stay at home with their children. It can be very hard to do, but I think it's something that we have to evaluate and assess and say if we're making the right decision for the long term and not just for the short term. The article basically it tries to discourage parents from quitting their jobs because of the burden of childcare right after you have a child. And so if you are a mother or a father and you recently had a baby, you know that putting an infant in childcare costs much. The cost is very high. It costs more to put an infant in childcare than it does to put an older child who's actually potty trained. And so the article also talks about how people are not just sacrificing putting their kids, quitting their jobs. They're also, if they choose to stay on with work, instead of going with that high quality daycare, they'll take a daycare that doesn't necessarily meet their personal standards so that they can continue to work. The article also discussed, if you have a chance, I'm going to go ahead and put a link to the discussion where I've shared the article. I'm going to put that link into the Facebook post. If you are joining us right now, please say hi. Let me know that you're live with us today. Just so I can say hi to you, I see Esther has joined. Thank you, Esther. Esther is my sister, so I definitely appreciate your support in helping me with sharing this discussion, and hopefully you'll be able to share it with someone else so that they can learn something from this discussion as well. So I am putting the link to the post, to the article. Inside the article are links to longer articles. So the article, the Working Mother article, is actually a rather short article. It provides the calculator that was created by an economist, and the calculator, you put in your age, you put in how long you plan to be out of work, and it calculates that information. So let's see. So I'm going to go ahead and open the article because I went ahead and I put in my information and I saw what came up for me as the sacrifice that I'm making and what it means for my long-term financial outlook. So if you have a chance, maybe after this conversation and after this discussion or during the discussion, if you have a chance to put that information, fill out the calculator, see what it says. I know I was, oh, hi, Mom. So I was also very surprised at how much, so I've been out of work for 8 years now. 8 years ago, I quit my full-time job to stay at home with my children, and based on the salary and the the salary that I was making, the calculator not only tells you about what happens when, you lose your salary. That's something that we're all aware of, but we're also losing our Social Security benefits. We're often losing our retirement income. I know that the job that I was at, they actually matched your retirement. And so my loss for becoming a stay-at-home mom wasn't just that yearly salary, but it was retirement income, Social Security income as well, which is definitely, it has a negative effect on your financial portfolio when you look at it in a long term, mainly because people really gain more money by compound interest, using compound interest to their advantage when they're putting money aside for retirement. So if you've tuned into past shows, we often talk about the need for having an IRA, the need for having a retirement account, the need for having life insurance, health insurance. All of those things are very important. This particular calculator does not talk about, losing your health care insurance. It doesn't talk about that. So there are many factors that the calculator doesn't discuss. I want to kind of break up the moment to say what the conversation, when I posted the article on my Facebook page, a lot of moms chimed in who are stay-at-home moms and who had been stay-at-home moms for many years. And they said that although it was a sacrifice financially, they are very happy that they made that sacrifice. For one, they developed closer relationships with their children, and many of them were able to homeschool. As you know, if you've tuned in from week after week, I'm a homeschool mom, so I don't just stay at home and do the homemaker things. I also educate my children. And so when you look at that, you think, man, this sacrifice is huge that I'm making, but what impact is it having on my children? And the impact of staying at home with your children is not a monetary one, usually. It's one where you're investing in your child's character. You're investing in, teaching your kids things that they wouldn't learn elsewhere. And so it's that quality time that you're putting in to just develop their character and nurture them and develop a bond with them that you may not be able to do if you were a working parent. And so I definitely have, mixed feelings about it because it is something that bothers me a little bit. I am definitely concerned about my financial outlook for years to come, which is why I started having these discussions with you guys, because I believe that as mothers, as caregivers, as fathers, whoever we are, even if we may not be the breadwinner in our home, there may come a time when things change, when you need to go back into the workforce, when you need to support your family. And so I believe that by simply just deciding to stay at home in and of itself and not do anything else could actually harm you. So I agree with the premise of the article. And the premise states that if you choose to become a stay-at-home parent and you leave the workforce, there is going to be some sort of negative reaction to your finances, even if it's only for a year. So I agree with that overall premise because it's really talking about that Social Security and the retirement income, and it is definitely affected when you choose to take off of work. Another thing that the article brought up was the fact that sometimes when you decide to return to work, you are returning to work at a lesser level than you would have if you had stayed. So the job that you'll get by returning to work is often less prestigious, makes less wages than a job that you would have is if you had stayed in that particular field. Now, what I wanted to do today, I didn't just want to bring up the fact that by choosing to be a stay-at-home mom, you're losing out on income. I wanted to kind of share some ways that as a stay-at-home mom or dad, you can change that effect. You can change it and make your financial outlook look better. This is something that the calculator doesn't talk about. Right now, we are in the technology age, and what has happened is many mothers and fathers have found ways to work from home. And so that is the advantage that we have. There are ways where, you can choose to work part-time. With technology, sometimes you can Skype into your job. I think that the most important thing to do is to plan. Thank you. If you're tuning in, definitely let me know that you're here. Tell me if you're a stay-at-home mom, if you've considered it, if you're a stay-at-home dad, if you considered it, or you know someone who is. Definitely let me know that you're here. I appreciate you tuning in. So here's the thing, you want to plan, and when you're planning, when you're deciding whether or not you want to be a stay-at-home parent, you have to kind of get a job and talk to your supervisor or the person who, is in charge to find out if you can stay at home, stay on the job in some sort of capacity, if you're even willing to consider that. Because you can stay at home and still work from home. So that's one thing to keep in mind. You can Skype in virtually, you can become just a virtual worker, which a lot of companies have allowed that flexibility, because what happens is parents, their kids don't just go to school during their core hours. Often their kids have shorter hours than their work hours, and so many families have had to find a way to work part-time or make their jobs flexible. So if you find a position that has that flexibility where at some point you can work from home, that is going to give you a greater advantage than if you left the workforce in its entirety. I know that myself and many other mothers and fathers that I know have created businesses. And in order to do that, if your skill set that you don't already have, if you can kind of, diversify your skill set, learn something new, and be able to market that, and you have to basically be gathering education at all times. So don't just leave the workforce and allow your skill set to suffer. If you have a position where you have to have certifications in order to keep that up, go ahead and keep up your certifications. That may require you working sometimes volunteer work just to keep up that certification, but think creatively, because you want to still be marketable if you have to return to the workforce. Another thing that you can do, which I was talking to my husband about this, and we kind of differed and debated whether or not he didn't necessarily agree with this. I would say, I basically said that one of the ways that people could become more flexible in their, that will make them more marketable when they return to the workforce after being a stay-at-home mom or dad, is to get an advanced degree. Right now, there's a lot of degrees that you can get by taking online classes. My husband said that it really wasn't the best idea to do that because online classes cost money and they're not free. And so by taking that class, you're taking money away from your household. To me, I differed and I disagreed, because even if you have to take a little bit money aside from that household, you could actually be bettering your outlook further down the line, because when you return to the workforce, you will have that discipline and maybe another. Hi, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it so much. We are just talking about the article. I posted it in the comments section. If you look in the comments section, there's an article on Working Mother that talks about how to calculate the long-term effects of becoming a stay-at-home parent. And this week, we've had several parents chime in about the sacrifice that they made and how they don't regret their decision. But at the same time, even though you don't regret that decision, you're still losing out on your retirement income. You're still losing out on that Social Security that you could be putting into the pot. And so what I've decided to do, we're not just going to talk about what we're losing out on, but as stay-at-home parents, as parents, period, even if you've had to return to work and maybe you had to kind of reduce your hours and work part-time or just not work as many hours, there's a few things that you can do to either make yourself more marketable in the workplace, or you can do to put more money aside for later on when you may need it. And we were just talking about furthering your education. It's not the easiest and not the most practical. I was saying that it's probably advantageous if you have the money to do so, go ahead and get an advanced degree while you're staying at home. If you can do that, take those online classes and you have the money to do so. My husband disagreed with that because he said that would take money away from the family. But I feel that whatever you're doing, you need to continue to stay relevant. And so if you can stay relevant by taking other classes or increasing your skill set, I think it's not even about furthering your education formally. It's about learning new skills. You always have to be learning. You always have to. So if you already have, the question is, what if you already have a master's degree? So if you already have a master's degree, the key is if your field requires a certification, then you should definitely keep up with those certifications, but you should also find a way to maybe volunteer in your free time to do something that's related. So when I say volunteer, I'm not necessarily saying to go work at a soup kitchen or something and give them some free services. No, I'm saying you may want to write about that topic and establish yourself as an expert in the field so that when your future employer or someone that you want to work with in the future Googles your name or Googles you, they will come up with someone who's contributing to that field. So you want to take your knowledge and find some way to market it on the side. So that is what I think is the key to kind of reversing the negative effect that is spoken about in that particular article. So if you can find some way to market that skill to others, I think that is important to do that. Because when you decide to return to the workforce, you don't want your resume to have a huge gap. And I think for me, as a freelance writer, as a parent, I have decided that whatever I can do, maybe if it's, on the weekends, sometimes speaking at a university or speaking at a school, whatever you can do creatively to continue to be relevant in the workforce, to continue to show that you didn't just sit home idly for a long period of time to say, I was home, but this is what I did. This is what I produced. Like writing an ebook. So that is actually the huge craze where people write an ebook about something that they're an expert in. So if you can do that, you'll have an author. You can add that to your name and add that to your resume, and that is going to show that you're very disciplined. You still have that discipline to be in the workforce, which is very important. So that is just one of the ways that you can continue your marketability by still staying at home. I know there are some parents in our discussion earlier that we had earlier in the week in the comment section. Some parents basically said that they do work part-time and they work when they can, like over the summer, depending on what they're. So here we have a comment and it says, I started contracting / consulting in HR. It gave me the flexibility to still be with my kids and work from home. That is excellent. And so I think that, consulting is huge, especially because like with Skype and all this technology, there are numerous ways that you can consult with others. And you can do that on your own time. And so you kind of have to think outside the box in order to do that. And so I think what you're doing is excellent. And I think that is so important for us as moms, not just, even if you have a breadwinner in the house, don't just look at that as a safety net, because who knows what could happen in the future. That safety net may not always be there. And so we have to still find ways to market ourselves, to make money, to bring something in. And so I think that, contracting and consulting is huge and is definitely a benefit. There are some people who sell things on eBay. I mean, don't sleep. That is actually a huge way, because eBay already has the customers. You just have to have a supply that is in high demand. So I think it's so important for us to put things into perspective and say, just because I'm at home doesn't mean I have to stop. Doesn't mean that my children get 100% of my time and energy. So it's great to give our kids our time and energy, but we also should not lose ourselves in the process, right? We have another comment. It says, I'm currently writing a book now on a 1-year plan to launch, and started a t-shirt design company. So this is another excellent idea. There are numerous ways that people can make money. And I love that you're tapping into your creativity, you're tapping into entrepreneurship, you're tapping into a skill set that you already have, and you found a way to kind of share that skill set with other people so that you are making money from that. And so I think it's awesome. I think it's fabulous. And I definitely wish you much success in all that you're doing. I also wanted to talk about other ways that you can save money. So everybody isn't going to be able to work part-time. People have different situations going on, and everybody's situation is different. But sometimes people get money for like an allowance. Sometimes their husband gives them an allowance, or their parents, or whoever. They still get an allowance. And I know that for some of us who are adults, that's like, what? They're still getting an allowance. But yeah, some adults still get money from their parents, or their husband, their spouse, whoever. And so if you're getting money, gifts, allowances, or just any money that's coming in, you have to think smart with the money that you're bringing in. So in thinking smart, what are you going to do? You're going to put money in your IRA. You're going to find a way to invest that money you're bringing in, even if it's a little bit. So I think of the story of it's a parable, the parable about the talents. If you have one talent, you don't want to bury that one talent. You want to make that talent into other talents. You want to grow it. And so that's what we want to do with our money. We want to grow it. We don't want it to just sit in our under our mattress and not accrue interest. Right now, the interest rates with the banks aren't that much, but there are other ways that, take a class on investments. There are many libraries that offer free classes. I know that where I live, the next county over where I can get a library card, they actually offer classes on investment. So look out of the box and think of ways where you can grow the little bit that you have, the little bit that you're bringing in. So I think it's very important to do that, because you can't just leave to chance to think that your retirement is just going to accrue by itself, or that your spouse's retirement is going to cover you all your life. It's not realistic. And so I think it's important for us as women to take control of our financial lives and just come up with ways so that we can make our financial outlook continue to grow, even if we feel totally committed. And I am very committed to taking care of my kids from home, but I also have to be committed to my future as well. And so put two things together, and put two and two together, and come up with ways to grow yourself, to grow your income, even while you're at home with your kids. So this discussion is not over. We are definitely going to have a part 2 next week. We're going to continue it because there are some more things that I want to share with you. Today, we talked about continuing that skill set, continuing the knowledge that you already have. That could be getting more certifications so that you can stay relevant in the workforce. It could be getting more information, taking online classes, or getting information by taking classes in another setting. Look for ways where you could take classes and get certifications for free. They're out there. Sometimes you can find a Groupon to gain a certification. look, just think outside of the box. The next thing we talked about was using your creativity and the skills that you already have to market those to make money. And the third thing we talked about was the money that you bring in, save it, invest it, make it grow. And so next week, we'll talk about some more things that we can do so that our financial future is not a bleak one, that is one where we are succeeding and we're growing and we're becoming more successful. So I appreciate everyone who tuned in. Definitely tell someone about the show, tell somebody about my Facebook Lives so that next week more people will tune in, because I think that it's very important for us as parents to have something to give to the next generation when we're no longer here. So I appreciate you. Again, leave a comment. If you have future show suggestions, you can leave the comment in the comment section so that we can put that on our list of things to discuss. So again, have a wonderful weekend, and I wish you the best. Bye now.